So hey guys, sorry that this review is a little bit late. Um, for those who might have been watching my channel not too long ago, I provided a link to a short film that I worked on for earlier in the month. That link provides you to a different channel of mine that I use for smaller purposes, like uploading long short films and things like that. So that link is offered in an earlier video on here on my channel. But for today's video and this one, I'm going to be talking about The Girl on the Train. Because of that short film, I wasn't able to review it until just now, so I apologize that this review is way later than some of these newer movie reviews tend to be. But for this movie review, you guys, this movie is based off of a best-selling novel. It's a mystery and suspense thriller kind of story involving a woman who suffers from alcohol problems. And she rides a train almost every day, whether she goes to work or doesn't go to work or just hangs around and draws. She's always riding this train, and she gets to see a really nice back view of these neighborhood houses of this neighborhood she used to live in. And she always sees this young girl on this porch that she's very jealous of. She seems to have a very attractive boyfriend, just the perfect life. For some odd reason or another, this Emily Blunt character is just absolutely obsessed with this girl. She thinks she just has everything that she wished that she still had in her own life since she's divorced. And she just develops this obsession with this girl over time. And as the film progresses, she notices that this girl is kind of starting to betray that perfect life that she once had. She's not seeing the same guy anymore. She's not on the porch as often. Whenever Emily Blunt's seeing her through the window, she seems to be having fights with that man that she used to be very romantically involved with. So somehow or another, Emily Blunt seems to notices that this girl's life is either just falling apart or she's not fully grateful for those things that she used to have earlier on in the movie. So as the film progresses, Emily Blunt's still having trouble with her alcohol problems, and she eventually sees this girl out in person somewhere. And because she was drunk that night, she completely blacks out, doesn't remember a lot. And throughout the course of this film, she figures out how this girl just randomly disappeared the following day. People don't know if she's missing or she was murdered or what exactly happened to her. So throughout the course of the film, we figure out what exactly happened to Emily Blunt when she blacked out, what caused her to black out specifically, and why this girl once had the perfect life and how that kind of all fell apart throughout the course of the film. So overall, guys, I thought The Girl on the Train was a good film, not a great film. I definitely saw a lot of connections to the film Gone Girl, for those who remember that from 2014. It felt like they were trying to go for a similar film with, troubled marriages and a missing person and, two detectives on the case and a person that's connected to all this. There's a lot of connections as far as certain kind of characters, how the story is structured, how the story is told, that it's very similar. Obviously, they're different stories, as you might have just witnessed here by my synopsis, but overall, they do seem to borrow, at least this film specifically, really seems to borrow a lot from Gone Girl, and that might turn off a lot of people just because, well, Gone Girl already happened, so we really didn't need another kind of interpretation involving a different scenario involving different characters. I personally thought there was just enough here to make it a different story, but for those who really wanted something completely different for a mystery and suspense thriller, unfortunately it is kind of along that same line as Gone Girl. But for my positives and negatives of this film, I thought in The Girl on the Train we had some great performances. Emily Blunt really was convincing as this alcoholic problemed woman. We really got the sense that she was struggling to put sentences together whenever she was very drunk. Whenever she was out in public and trying to talk to people, it really seemed difficult for her. She had a lot of difficulties, keeping her problems to herself rather than just sharing them with others like she was always doing throughout the movie. Luke Evans is in the film and he's very good. Allison Janney is one of the detectives. So as you can see, there's a lot of very talented people involved with this film and they all do great performances. So I had no problems with that whatsoever. And I also thought Emily Blunt's character was pretty interesting for the most part. We really figure out why she's having these alcohol problems, why she's interpreting things in certain ways. Um, and her interpretation, I think, is something that gets more and more interesting as the film progresses. I think Tate Taylor did play around with that just enough to make things interesting. So, as far as having an interesting character for us to follow throughout the course of the film, I thought Emily Blunt did a great job with that. I also thought this was a very entertaining film. I'll get to some of my negatives here in a minute, but for the most part, I was very entertained as the film progressed, as the film played out. I was entertained. I liked what I was seeing. I really never felt bored per se. So it's always entertaining. So for those who really need a film that it's just entertaining from the minute the film starts to the minute the film ends, I do think The Girl on the Train is that kind of good film that offers that experience. I also like the film's interesting depiction of alcoholism. It really does depict how, when a person is drunk, how they do interpret things differently than when they're not drunk, and how they view things as scarier, how they view things as that certain situation being their fault for why it happened the way it did. So there's certain depictions of alcoholism in this film that I think was very interesting that really worked to the film's advantage. This film is also very, very suspenseful. There's a lot of times where I think where I know where the film's going, and it goes a different direction, then it goes a different direction again. So kind of like Gone Girl, it always is kind of on your feet like that. I did pick up on where the film was going to go at a certain point, and then it kind of stayed there, and then it kind of went with that direction after a while and didn't do another twist again. But for the most part, I thought it was a very suspenseful story that was pretty well told for the most part, especially with its suspense. This is also a very well shot film. I had no problems with the cinematography in this film. Tate Taylor, who directed the film, and whoever did the cinematography, really seemed to know how to get the shots that they needed to make this film work. So, as far as how the film is shot, it's shot very well. For my negatives of Girl on the Train, because like I have said numerous times throughout this review, I don't think this is another Gone Girl, but I think for negatives of this film and why I don't think it's an absolutely great film, I think it's a very slow paced film. I think it's a film that really needs to know how to pace things better. There's certain scenes that play out perfectly fine. There's certain scenes that reveal things that are perfectly fine, that build up things that are perfectly fine, but it's very slow. It takes a long time to get to those big story points that really make The Girl on the Train work for the most part. So it's a very slow paced film. Another negative I have with the film is because it is so similar to Gone Girl, I thought Tate Taylor didn't put enough of his own little style into this film. The other big film he directed before this one was The Help. Unfortunately, The Help's a very different film than The Girl on the Train, so he wasn't able to transfer a lot of skills he brought to that film over to this one. And I felt like he just didn't add his own little personal touch. Sorry, I filmed this review kind of late, so I'm sorry if my eyes are a little squinty. So I thought he really didn't add his own personal touch. And I think that that's why David Fincher did so well with Gone Girl, because he added his own personal touch. Tate Taylor did not do that. He took something that other filmmakers are known for, specifically David Fincher, and he tried to do that with his style that he has. And I don't think that worked super well with this film, unfortunately. Danny Elfman also composed the score for this film, and I thought it was a very weak musical score. I would say the day after I saw this film, I instantly forgot about what the score to this film sounded like. Just a very forgettable Danny Elfman score, and that's really too bad. I think he is one of the most talented film composers on the planet next to John Williams and Hans Zimmer. Just not a great Danny Elfman score, unfortunately. I also thought this film lost track of its plot at times. There's just a lot of times in the film where it's so focused on making sure this character's point gets told and that this perspective from this other character gets told and that we get to see this happening at that certain time at that certain place, that it does kind of lose track of its plot at times. And I think that's something that also hurts the film. The film also really doesn't have a sense of privacy. I get that they're trying to go for the whole rear window thing with characters being able to see what happens in windows and what happens behind closed doors, and these characters don't know about it. But I think realistically speaking, I don't think some people are that stupid when it comes to privacy. I think a lot of people close their blinds when they're about to make love and all that kind of stuff. There's just a lot of scenes in this film where it's like I don't think most people are that willing to be that exposed about that certain thing. And there's just certain moments like that where I get it that it's just part of the movie. They have to do that so that one character knows about that one thing that happened at that certain time. But unfortunately, that creates a very unrealistic sense of no privacy, really, and it kind of hurts the film. There's also some annoying time jumps throughout the film where it's like, okay, well, now you need to know something that happened 4 months before. Now you need to know what happened 2 months before here, and now what happened a couple hours before here, before this thing happened, before that thing happened, before this thing happened. And there's just a few little annoying time jumps that happen throughout the course of the film, and they just kind of feel randomly placed together like there really wasn't much of an editor to begin with. And once again, this hurts the film. So overall, I'm going to give The Girl on a Train a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, there's some really good things about this film. The performances are great. Emily Blunt plays a very interesting character. It's an entertaining film. It depicts alcoholism in a very interesting way. It's suspenseful. It's well shot. But unfortunately, some of these negatives like slow pacing, Tate Taylor not putting his own style enough of his own style into this film. A Danny Elfman score that's very weak. It loses its track. It loses track of its plot at times. The film's sense of privacy really isn't that realistic, and it just has a lot of annoying time jumps that just kind of got on my nerves after a while. So because of all those things, I do think I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10 because I do think it's worth a rental, but I don't think it's exactly a film that you need to immediately go see out in the theater right away. So 7.5 out of 10. There's a lot of good things about it, but there's just enough bad things about it where I would just say rent it, and you don't have to go out to a theater to go see it.